Hi everyone, I'm James, and today I'll be talking about how I'll prepare for the O-Level Chemistry Paper 1 2025. The O-Level Chemistry Paper 1 is a 1-hour paper with 40 MCQ questions. Here is my plan for studying O-Level Chemistry Paper 1. I will plan to spend about 5 hours in total studying, and that will purely just involve doing the past 5 years of O-Level Chemistry Paper 1s. This involves the paper from 2020 to 2024. After each paper, I will mark those papers and take note of weak topics. As many have known, the easiest way to study MCQs is to do them because MCQs heavily rely on exam taking skills, and therefore doing more MCQ questions will make one realize what are the potential traps that could come out in an MCQ paper. Personally, I took about 30 to 40 minutes for each of the past papers from 2020 to 2024 O-Level Paper 1, and my score ranged from 33 out of 40 to 38 out of 40. I realized that a lot of mistakes are made purely from not reading the question properly and answering, or just rushing through too much and therefore making careless mistakes. What I realized is that MCQs are more difficult than open-ended questions because they could potentially test more in the same question and test in greater detail, and therefore MCQ shouldn't be underestimated because they can be extremely tricky and more difficult to score than open-ended questions. What I realized about each paper is that generally there are 1 to 2 identical questions that repeat from previous years. Literally, they are copied and pasted into the paper without any form of changing or with minimal changing. Here are the weak areas that I realized. Firstly is electrochemistry, because sometimes I'm pretty confused about which is oxidized and which is reduced. Secondly would be the reactivity series. Although now I am more familiar with the reactivity series after studying for paper 2, but sometimes I am still very confused about what will decompose and how will the decomposition reactions be, especially on nitrates and carbonates. Next will be gas tests. I believe that especially in 2023 and 2024, there was an MCQ question that asked how many of these you will need from the list in order to test for these 4 gases. This is again another example that I must really know some topics extremely well because they can potentially test a lot of information just from one single MCQ question. For the rest of the areas, I find that generally the mistakes are isolated and I could narrow down to doing too fast, especially for some of the organic chemistry questions where I counted the carbons wrongly or I counted the number of hydrogen atoms wrongly. In conclusion, my overall strategy on the day itself is to do more slowly and take up to 50 minutes for the paper and leaving 10 minutes to check. What I realized is that generally I answer the questions fast enough, but I am pretty careless. So that is my biggest mistake. While doing fast enough is important, reading the question is even more important because this prevents any marks that could have been lost just due to carelessness alone. For everyone who is watching this, all the best for paper 1, and I hope that this is the last paper for your O-level examinations. Thank you.